Here are 4 sleeper prospects in the 2026 NFL draft class who are moving up the board after the week of football that we just saw from them last weekend. So, Doug, I pointed out 4 guys. Usually we do a stock up, stock down. This is a glass half full version where there are just 4 guys who impressed the heck out of me this past weekend in college football.
The glass is teeming. It's overflowing.
It is, man. It's overflowing with positivity this week. We love to see it.
Come on, get happy.
The first guy on the list, I feel a little bit of a hypocrite because I spent this entire offseason and the season so far criticizing the heck out of the Saints for using a top 40 pick on a 26-year-old rookie quarterback. But I'm going to talk about another quarterback who's been in college for 7 years now. He started at Maine. Now he's at UConn. Joe Fagnano, which, again, as an Italian guy, I'm all about this guy. I'm biased here in my reporting here. But, man, even just to look at the box score, I'm no box score scout, but if you have 25 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions at this point in the season, that's going to pique my interest. And I tell you what, I watched him play this past weekend in an upset win over Duke. I mean, you can call it an upset, but it was a great comeback. He played extremely well. He led the team in rushing, 51 yards on 6 carries as well, in addition to having a great game through the air. I mean, I'm starting to run out of reason. The only thing I don't like about this guy is that he's been in college forever, and he's going to be that older prospect. So, again, he's not going to be a top 50 guy for me, maybe even not a day 2 guy. But, I mean, he's got the size. He's got the arm talent. He's a dual-threat guy. He's obviously very experienced. He makes every throw. Tell me why I shouldn't be excited about this guy in terms of the tools he's going to bring to the next level outside of the fact that he's just going to be an older prospect.
No, I'm right. Because he went to UConn, now he's Dan Orlovsky's favorite quarterback. Hi, Dan.
What's up, Dan?
Yeah, with Fagnano,
you got to do it.
It was because strength of competition, you wonder. So I watched him specifically in Syracuse, Buffalo, and Boston College. And I liked what I saw. Really good thrower on the move. They roll him out and boot a ton. They may do more boot than anyone else in the NCAA. He has a great sense of how to right his feet and his shoulders with the throw, so he's not, his feet aren't going this way and his arms going that way, and it all just doesn't work. And one thing that really stood out to me, he is extremely adept at throwing his receivers open, throwing the ball where his receiver can get it, but the defender can't. And he's really, he's good at being on target, downfield, short to intermediate to deep, in those little things where, all right, the defender's coming here, so I'm going to throw it over here. And now that's where the age and the experience, we talked about Carson Beck last week and how Beck has all these reps, but maybe he's not experienced because it doesn't seem like what is supposed to kick in the head is kicking in the head. With Fagnano, I think it is. And the throwing guys open, throwing to the right spot. I remember hearing a story about Bill Walsh telling Mike Holmgren in 1988 that when Montana hit Jerry Rice over here, when it was supposed to go between the 8 and the 0, and Walsh was just furious because the ball didn't go where it needed to go. There is that, you look at the best quarterbacks in the NFL, they're required to do that, and they can pull it off. And I think Fagnano can do it. And when 25 touchdowns, no interceptions, you assume he's playing within the system, not taking many chances. He's completed 16 of 45 passes of 20 or more air yards for 516 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, obviously, and a pass rating of 109.1. Really good under pressure. He's got a live arm. He can go through progressions. He's got a good sense of the overall game. I see him as a priority third-day guy. If he goes in the 4th or 5th round, I wouldn't be completely surprised.
Yeah, that's where I see him as well. I think when all you've got is something that the only negative is a trait that's not really a trait. Like, he can't help the fact that he's been in, again, he had an injury. He took advantage of the extra year from the COVID shortened season in 2020. Like, he's playing as much football as he can, but I think he's playing his way on tape into being a serious consideration. And again, I think part of the reason the Saints also felt comfortable taking a guy like Shuck is we're seeing quarterbacks play really, really good football well into their 30s. And obviously you have unicorns that are doing it into their late 30s and 40s, but that's not going to be the norm. But you're seeing guys
picturing all the ridiculous throws Matthew Stafford made yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, you're seeing Sam Darnold playing well at the moment. We saw really good ball from Geno Smith last year. It hasn't been the same this year, but guys playing, 32, 33, 34 years old, still playing really good football. You're still getting a decade out of a guy who's 25, 26 coming to the next level. That's still a lot, and I think that's still why it's so important to invest at the position. If you see a guy who can do it well, the fact that he's 25 instead of 22 or 23 might not matter as much as it used to. I know I was biased.
If he's further along in his process, you don't need to teach him as much. The age thing kind of disappears.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't get you fired like it just got Brian Dable fired. Maybe it gives you a little more take advantage of the fact that nobody has any patience. The next guy on this list, again, I'm super biased about this. I'm gonna not pretend that I'm not a University of South Florida alum and a proud one. But 2 weeks ago, Doug, I told you about Jarvis Lee because he popped against Memphis in a game that the Bulls had a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. They blew that lead and they lost that game, which was a crushing blow for them. But Jarvis Lee was all over the place in that game. He was all over the field. He was blowing plays up in the backfield. Every time he was near the line of scrimmage, it felt like he was wrecking the game. And I was all prepared to write about it until a giant windstorm knocked out my power and my internet for 3 days, as you well know. So I didn't get a chance to write about Jarvis Lee that week. But he decided to give me another opportunity because this past week, USF was really, really unhappy about the way they finished that game in Memphis, and they took it out on the UTSA Roadrunners. They were up 45-10. 5 minutes, or at halftime, I believe it was 52-10, 5 minutes into the third quarter. But that game started on the first play of the game. UTSA runs a play action pass out of the pistol, I think, and Jarvis Lee just comes like a bat out of hell, flying at the quarterback. Quarterback panics and just chucks the ball down the middle of the field. It's picked off and run back for a touchdown on the first play of the game. USF gets a pick six on the first play because Jarvis Lee creates it with his pressure. UTSA gets the ball back. They drive all the way down the field. They get a pass interference penalty in the end zone, I believe. So they've got 1st and goal at the 2-yard line. They run play action again, and Jarvis Lee flies into the backfield, jumps onto the quarterback's back, and like on the way down, rips the ball out of his hands into the air, into a teammate's hands who runs it 85 yards for a touchdown. And the Bulls are up.
Gaskin, baby. Boom.
Fred Gaskin. The Bulls are up 14-0 before Byron Brown and the offense has to touch the field at all. And Jarvis Lee's hands are all over both of those touchdowns. This is a guy that 10 games into this season as a slot nickel defender, he has 10.5 tackles for loss this season. I mean, this dude is an absolute game wrecker. I called him an agent of chaos. He's just so much fun to watch. And again, even if I take the USF fandom away from this, if you put any helmet on that guy, he's become one of my favorite sleeper prospects to evaluate in this class. 5'11", 185. He's a junior, so he's technically eligible. He could come back. But man, this USF defense has been so much improved. Jarvis Lee is a huge reason why. Tell me what you saw when you looked at the tape.
I see a duel. I may have never seen a more Luke Easterling player than this guy because, first of all, there's USF. Second of all, there's the fact I have him with 8 tackles for loss and 2 forced fumbles based on what I use. But it's the same thing. And I don't know, Luke, who blitzes their defensive backs more than anyone else in the NFL?
I'm going to say it's probably Todd Bowles in Tampa.
Probably. Yeah, and it's not even close. So Lee, 5'11", 195, plays much bigger than that. When he's going after the ball carrier, I remember Randy Cross once said something about Ronnie Lott. He doesn't care about his own body. Why should he care about yours? That's the way this guy plays. On any NFL team with a knack for DB blitzes, Bucks, Seahawks, Bears, Chargers, they're the top 4 this year. He'll need some work at the NFL level when it comes to matching receivers, especially in man match at the route stem. But I could see a team taking a late round, 5th, 6th round flyer on this guy just for the blitz stuff and the way he just caroms into the backfield and all that aggressiveness. You fill it all in from there. I wouldn't call him like a day 1 or day 2 priority defensive player, but someone's going to see what this guy can do and build around that, and they could have a formidable player.
I just think, too, it's about when you enter the league. We've seen so many players over the years who are like, oh, man, he was here too early, or he came a decade too late, like he didn't fit.
Michael Boulware. I always think of Michael Boulware.
Yeah, I mean, but we in the modern NFL, so many offenses are condensing all their formations that it's giving defensive coordinators so many opportunities to blitz those corners that are lined up close to the line of scrimmage because they're bringing all those defenders in with them into the box. Basically, it gives you so many more opportunities to be aggressive with those guys. I feel like Jarvis Lee is entering the league at the perfect time for his skill set to be maximized. You listed those 4 defenses alone in terms of the frequency with which they bring those guys. I just feel like it's a perfect match wherever he gets drafted. If he comes out this year, whatever, he feels like he could be that day 3 guy that just gets picked by the right team because they know how to use what he brings to the table, and whatever the combine stats are, whatever his size, anything, he just ends up in the right system to where he is that guy that, even if he's not a full-time starter, makes 3 or 4 plays a game that can win you ball games and take the ball away, like we've seen that he can do so far this year.
Well, especially with these condensed formations, as you mentioned, Spags of the Chiefs, whenever he sees a condensed formation, he's blitzing his guys. He's blitzing his corners. And really what you want is to create free hitters with these corner and safety blitzes. We didn't expect this guy to come in. We didn't account for him in our protection. We didn't even see him coming, and webbo. And Lee is very, I was thinking of a Buccaneers guy we're going to talk about later. Jacob Parrish. He's got that. And like I said, you can build around that.
The next guy on this list is a fun one. I love players that start out as one thing in high school and they turn into something completely different. This guy was a 3-star quarterback recruit coming out of high school. And
that
now
blew my mind.
Jacob Rodriguez at Texas Tech is an absolute maniac of an off-ball linebacker for one of the best defenses in college football right now. This past weekend, they had a big game, previously undefeated BYU, and that Texas Tech defense went in there and just dominated BYU, and Jacob Rodriguez was a huge part of it. 14 total tackles, tackle for loss, a pick, a fumble recovery, I believe. He was just everywhere. His hands were in everything. He's a guy that's flying up the board in a super deep linebacker class, by the way. This off-ball linebacker class could be the best one I've seen in 20 years. Jacob Rodriguez is launching himself into the conversation among the best ones. When you looked at the tape, what does this converted high school quarterback bring to the table as a defender now?
It's so weird. Yeah, the depth of the linebacker class is the only reason I see this guy getting into the third day, because he's a second or third round player to me. Linebackers need to be stop machines, the guys who can blow up run fits, quick passes to prevent successful plays. Rodriguez has 50 stops in the season, which ranks 4th in the FBS among linebackers. Very adept in coverage to read short and intermediate concepts. And speaking of forced fumbles, this guy has 7 on the season. 7 forced fumbles. No FBS player has more. Given how well that Red Raiders defense is playing overall, he deserves this honor. I bet NFL people are watching him rather closely and looking at him as, we can start this guy in year 1. So many more teams, like the Rams, are playing so much more dime. Teams are playing more dime as base now, certainly nickel as base. Seahawks are playing over 90% nickel as base this year. Just teams are doing so many different things in their defenses. You need that guy in the middle of the field who can pull it all together and hold it all together. I think Rodriguez has all the skills and certainly the acumen to take that from the NCAA to the NFL. I loved his tape. Loved the player.
Yeah, he's so much fun. Again, anytime I see a guy who gets his hands on the ball and the ball carrier, either in the backfield or down the field, whether it's pass or run, and you're proving that you can do both. You can cut down the passing lanes. You can get your hands on the football and just create annoyance for the offense, right? You can create negative plays. You can create big plays by getting your hands on the ball, getting it in the air, just picking it off yourself. Those are boxes that I'll always check for a linebacker. And again, do I expect him to be the most athletic guy at the combine? Maybe not. But when you have all the mental stuff there at a position where it's so important, we've talked about it so many. We have so many great athletes that go to the next level as linebackers, but the game is just so different at that position at the NFL level that it's hard to make an immediate impact because there's so much you have to adjust to. He feels like a guy who would be, the 7th or 8th linebacker off the board, but then halfway through his rookie season, we're talking about him being one of the most impactful players because of the mental part and the fact that it's not as much of a transition for him. I think he could make an immediate impact.
And even just to break in, I don't know if Woody's going to run in a straight line, but I would imagine the W drills, the flat drills, any kind of coverage drills, any sort of backpedal stuff, he's going to do really well with that because he does
the really stuff that matters a lot more for that position than just running
40 yards in a straight line. Yeah, maybe.
So the last guy on my list, again, I couldn't find anybody to poke holes in this week with any significance, so I just kept finding guys that jumped out to me. If you're a wide receiver who's 6'3", 210 plus, and you catch 5 passes and 3 of them end up in the end zone, my eyebrows are going to go up every time. And Ian Strong from Rutgers, that's what he did this past weekend. And I see, again, you can be big and strong, but you're usually not explosive, or you can be quick and explosive, but you usually don't bring size and physicality to the table. Ian Strong seems to be the kind of guy who's bringing all of those things to the table. Again, 6'3", 211, 5 for 88, and 3 touchdowns this past week. And he's winning vertically. He's winning with explosiveness. He's winning not just contested catches, but he's taking the tops off of defenses at that size. I mean, do you agree when you look at a guy who brings those kind of measurables to the table, but he can also beat you over the top, and he can be the contested catch guy you'd expect at that size? What did you see when you turned on the tape with Ian Strong?
I saw 7 deep catches, 20 or more air yards on 11 targets this season for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know how many slot targets he has this year?
I don't.
1. They are lining him up as an ex-ISO true boundary and field receiver to be your best opposing cornerback. This is, I'm not saying he's that guy, but it's sort of that A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase. We're going to put him outside and just blow your guy up. And he...
Good luck.
unquestionably has those attributes as a true ex-ISO guy. We talked about the condensed formations, receiver versatility, lining guys up in different places, because you're not Mike Evans, you're not Jamar Chase, you're not A.J. Brown. Those guys don't happen a lot. I'm not saying Ian Strong is going to be that guy, but that's certainly the way Rutgers has deployed him this year, and he's done very well with that. So, you know, heavy 3-by-1 teams like the Titans, like the Bengals, like all, you know, teams that run a lot of wider stuff, which Rutgers does a lot. It makes me a little worried about their offense because they're so spread out. It's kind of like Tennessee, where I don't know how much of this I'm going to see in the NFL. But certainly when you isolate the player, and his specific attributes for that ex-ISO position, which is still valuable in the NFL, although offenses have changed. Yeah, that's what he is. And teams are always going to value that, especially because it's just so rare to find that guy.
Does your favorite NFL team need one of these guys? Do they need a big explosive wide receiver? Do they need an off-ball linebacker who can make an immediate impact? Do they need maybe an older quarterback, but a quarterback who has all the tools and doesn't throw literally any interceptions? Do they need a nickel defender who is just going to camp out in opposing backfields, pay rent there, and make big plays all day long and take the ball away? Who are the other sleepers in this draft class? Your favorite guys that maybe we didn't mention that everybody needs to know about? Let us know in the comments below.